Okay, so I have a bone to pick, and if you are one of the fortunate people who does not have parents like this, keep scrolling and consider yourself lucky.
Boomers were deadbeat parents, and if you had emotionally immature boomer parents, especially if they provided for you materially, it can be really hard to reconcile that fact. I feel like I've been talking about this, about my own experience for a million years now, and I'm still in therapy. Like, I'm gonna be in therapy for years, if not the rest of my life.
You know, sometimes I feel like being a millennial, we really did get some of the best and worst lives possible in terms of we had a great life as a kid when it came to what we're able to do. We were able to go outside, but we also saw the transition of analog life to digital life. We had great TV shows growing up. We had more freedom than kids do nowadays. But our parents were most likely boomers and baby boomers. They were the most prosperous generation in history. And I think they were a little bit detached emotionally, which definitely left a lot of millennials emotionally scarred, to say the least. And we're going to discuss that in today's video with a couple clips on this particular subject. So with that being said, let's dive into it.
Boomers were deadbeat parents, and if you had emotionally immature boomer parents, especially if they provided for you materially, it can be really hard to reconcile that fact. I feel like I've been talking about this, about my own experience for a million years now, and I'm still in therapy. Like, I'm gonna be in therapy for years, if not the rest of my life. Something that is just so confusing to me is this idea that, like, I thought I had loving parents. I thought I had a good childhood because I had food, shelter, clothes, ride to school when I missed the bus. And that's really the bare minimum, right? That's like the bare minimum. If you didn't feel safe going to your parents because like something happened at school that you were embarrassed about, if you didn't feel safe to go to your parents, like when you got your first period, like you didn't feel safe confiding in them about something because you didn't want them to get mad on your behalf and make it even worse for you, like you had emotionally deadbeat parents. And if you're in your adulthood struggling with having a relationship with them because they will not do like a single iota of work in order to make being around them more tolerable for you, even though you have to like invest in therapy every time you have a conversation with them, like they're emotionally deadbeat parents. And to an extent, they can be loving. Like they can say that they love you. They can act or like go through the motions of doing things like they love you, like making a meal for you when you visit. But when you want to talk about yourself or like something you're going through, like they don't know what to say or how to like contribute to your conversation. They might be emotionally deadbeat parents. If your parents didn't provide for you, if they weren't around, if they didn't work, if they made decisions that resulted in you not having food or clothes or like lights on in your house, they were deadbeat parents. Your parents didn't know how to comfort you, if they didn't know how to talk to you, if they didn't know how to be like a safe, loving place you went when you needed help and support and confidence and to be built up or maybe to be taught a lesson, then they were emotionally deadbeat. And if they're still doing this to you in your adulthood, where they like insist on seeing you, yet don't allow you to be yourself around them because of how they act, and they get to let it all hang out, sending you into therapy and them to never ever think twice about it, they're emotionally deadbeat. And you shouldn't feel bad for not talking to them because like, it's obviously not painful enough for them to send them into intensive therapy to fix themselves so that their beloved children will talk to them again. So what does that tell you?
I don't really believe in completely cutting off your parents unless it was really warranted, like unless there was like physical abuse or some other form of abuse. But being emotionally deadbeat, that just could just be the way they're raised. You have to think about the boomers, right? They were raised by people who went to war, who actually, might have actually murdered people in a war in a foreign country, and then they come back and everything's all normal and stuff, and obviously they have a lot of trauma and they pass this trauma on to their kids in some form, and that gets passed on to their kids, and it's like this cycle of trauma. And I feel like as millennials, as a millennial myself, I need to find a way to not pass on any trauma to my kid and try to give him the best life possible while also still being emotionally available and obviously financially available.
Okay, so I have a bone to pick, and if you are one of the fortunate people who does not have parents like this, keep scrolling and consider yourself lucky. Have you ever had one or even both parents do something selfish and then justify it by saying, do you know what I've sacrificed? Do you know what I've done for this family? Bitch, I did not ask to be born. I'm sorry. You made those choices. I was just a child. And last time I checked, isn't that your job as a parent? And now you're trying to hold that over my head or be resentful for your choices? And if you didn't want to do any of these things, you should have thought about that before having children. The audacity!
Yeah, and I think some of this gets maybe passed on through a form of resentment when it comes to how difficult maybe the first few years of a child's life are, which can be the most challenging, right? Like it is for me and my wife. Now, luckily, Logan, he's 13 months now. He's still only waking up maybe 3 times a night, maybe 4 times a night on a bad night. But before, it would be like consistently. It was like 8 months of him waking up 5 to 8 times a night, and you can't function properly the next day. Like you are just filled with just horrible energy all day, and you're just trying to basically make ends meet, right? Like you're still trying to provide for your kid as well, but also be present. Try to enjoy the moments, because there's gonna be a lot of cute moments, and you have to not let it get to you, all the other stuff that is, you know, hand in hand with having a kid. And that's why a lot of people decide not to have kids, and I completely understand that. You need to be as available as you can to your children, and I think millennials are like the first generation that actually are starting to figure this out, which is good, but I'm hoping other generations after that, you know, don't make the same mistake, and if they are going to have kids, they should probably also be available in a lot of different ways.
So I can't find the comment, but somebody at some point asked me what my perspective on like boomers is and like what is up with them, and so I'm going to share what I think is up with them. I think boomers are just the natural product of the norm over the entire timeline of our civilization of treating children like objects. Before there was a choice to have children, the children just were born and then had to serve the needs of the family and help with the survival. Once it became kind of a choice about whether or not to have children, the concept was still like you have children to serve your needs. When you're thinking about whether or not you want to have a child, you're thinking, do I want to have a child? Like, is this going to serve my life? Is this what I want for me? And so every generation has experienced their own trauma and had very few mental health resources to help them cope with their trauma. And the boomers' parents were very, very traumatized, and they passed down all of those emotional issues onto their boomer kids. And then boomers grew up and entered adulthood at a time where it was kind of advantageous for them. Like they entered an economically viable world and they kind of got what they were promised. So they didn't really have the incentive to think like, is something wrong? Should I have been what's amiss here? And then millennials entered a world that was completely different and was not working out for them. And so we also had the tools and the language and the resources to think, is this okay? And so we are the first generation that when we're thinking, do we want to have kids, we are centering the child and what that child would need before ourselves. For the most part, I really have a lot of empathy with the fact that like boomers just did what they knew how to do, right? And like they helped us dig a hole because that's what they knew how to do when they gave us the shovel and they showed us how to dig. The reason I think for the majority of the no contact, it's not necessarily the fact that they helped us build a hole. It's what they're doing when we try to get out of it. So that's what I think is the deal with boomers. Hashtag not all boomers, you know, I get it, but like also.
Yeah, that's probably something I should end this video off with as well. You know, obviously not all boomers are like this, but I feel like there is a big percentage of baby boomers that have definitely passed on trauma or just had a different way of raising kids that maybe isn't suitable for today. Regardless, I want your thoughts and opinions on this video subject as well down below in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.